I'm also going to try something new. Let me see whether or not this works. Not there yet. Okay. So I'm Linda Brubaker, and this is Lunch and Learn. And it's all about job search. And today is really all about you. I want to tell you just a little bit about me first. I've been in the HR field in employment-related positions my entire career. And what that means is that I've been everything from an HR business partner to an inside recruiter, a headhunter, executive search consultant. I've managed talent acquisition. I've been a hiring manager, and I've been a full-time job search coach now for almost 7 years. So what I do is that I work with people to help them highlight, leverage their skills to find their next forever jobs and find and hire their next employer. In addition, I run these lunch and learn sessions because to me, this is my way of giving back and helping you to make sure that everybody gets their questions answered. Job search is hard. We're all here to support each other. And that's one of these programs. That's why I want to make sure that you're putting your information into the chat so that we know how to get a hold of you, connect with you, network with you. Okay. I want to introduce, that's who I am. Sue, would you like to introduce yourself too?
Hi, I'm Sue Griffey. I'm known as Sue Mentors in the virtual world. And some of you know me and know I bring my pom-poms to make sure that we celebrate even just showing up here, because some days you don't even want to show up here to listen about what's going on with job search. I have a global mentoring practice, which means that I work with people in countries all over the world. And I'm working with some of you on this call have connected and come to see me. My goal is that you get the help and the support you need short-term and long-term. So when Linda said, sure, so you can come along, it helps me learn what you're facing, but it also gives you another perspective. And sometimes I have things to tell you the difference, and sometimes it's similar between the US and the rest of the world. Thanks, Linda.
Thank you, Sue, for joining us and for providing that perspective and that input. So first, I'd like to know whether or not anybody has any successes to share. If you do, either put it in the chat or more likely, just raise your hand. Let us see you. I'm not seeing anything. Let's go to my second screen. Susan, excuse me.
Hi there.
Hello.
So, I'm Susan. I'm from Greater Philadelphia area, and this is an example of incremental steps to success, or success can be baby steps. So last fall, I was working in a restaurant hostessing, and a lady was waiting for her food, and we started chatting. What do you do? I mentioned grant writing, grant management. She's like, oh, we were just talking at work about needing to hire a grant writer. And about a month later, I gave her my card, and a month later, I get a random email from someone, and turns out it's her, and she wanted to connect, and it's taken us this long, but every so often I would send her a note and say, hey, checking in. And so finally we're talking this afternoon. So it's baby steps, all in networking. You know, you never know randomly where you're going to meet somebody, and we'll see what happens. So I consider that a win.
I consider that a great win. Okay. And it demonstrates a couple of things that you all should be aware of. You never know where that next connection is going to come from. And it's up to you not just to have those connections, but you have to build them, nurture them, keep in touch with people, not stalking them. Okay. But make sure that every once in a while you're checking in to see how things are going. The other thing that I like is that you weren't deliberately setting out to network. Susan, you were there. You were just having that conversation. And ultimately, that's what networking really is. It's conversations, it's building connections. And from those connections, you really never know what's going to happen. So congratulations, Susan. Let us know what happens. Okay. Anyone else have a success to share? Sherry.
Hi, it's Sherry Hedenberg. Okay, so I lost my job last week. And I had a feeling that something was going to happen just based on what a manager said. So when they came in to eliminate my position. I wasn't completely surprised. But the day before that happened, somebody that I used to work with at an earlier job contacted me the day before and asked me if I wanted to do some marketing for him. And I said, I can't right now, but things could change tomorrow, because I had that feeling. I said things could change tomorrow. Didn't want to say anything negative. And sure enough, things changed. So I contacted him like a day or two after I lost my job. And he is now wanting me to come on board and help him do some contracting work.
Perfect. Congratulations, Sherry. I think that's great.
Thank you.
So never close those doors. That's another idea that Sherry's telling us, is that when those contacts come up, when there's a possibility, keep that information going, keep that flow going, because you don't know where it's going to come from. Hi, Chad. There you go.
Hey there. So, like Sherry, I lost my job last week as well. And like Sherry, didn't come as a complete surprise because I had seen how things were going for a while. But this is now the fifth consecutive day where I've been able to do some kind of networking.
Chad, you're frozen. Okay, Chad, when you unfreeze or when your connection stabilizes, we'll get you back. But in the meantime, anybody else? One of the things about technology, it's great when it works, and when it doesn't, we find a workaround. Okay, it's a learning experience for all of us. We'll figure it out. Okay, anybody else have a success to share? I know that a couple of you had some interviews last week. Any feedback yet? Okay. Al.
So I've been in the middle of working with my alma mater they're working on getting a position together for me. And it's taking some twists and turns. They're still kind of working on it. I had a call last week and they're adjusting it. But it's one of these things where, you want it right now because you've been waiting so long to get this job. But I'm trying to be patient for them to come back to me. I realize sometimes it takes a few people to put this together. And so I've been trying to network with other alumni in the Phoenix area and just trying to get kind of connected to more people and see where this goes. But hopefully in the next few weeks, we'll see something happen.
Oh, that's fantastic. So one of the things that Al just mentioned is the idea of connecting with people from your school. Those alumni groups are great resources. And so many of us, I admit I'm one of them, I forget about them. I don't connect, and I need to start doing that. I'm going to suggest that you all do that as well, because they're great resources in terms of finding out additional information, getting some ins into certain organizations, finding out what's going on, or just being able to find out, to build those networks and those connections. You have a ready in to get that connection. You have a ready in that networking group to get some of those conversations going because you already have something in common. And especially if that school is listed on your profile in LinkedIn, people will understand that you're part of that group, and it's an easy way to get that connection request going. Okay, good. Chad, welcome back.
Thanks. Yeah, I just got kicked out there momentarily.
Okay, would you like to continue on with your success story?
Yeah, I was just mentioning, that even though I just been laid off last Wednesday, this is the fifth consecutive day I've been able to do some networking. So just appreciate everyone being here. Hannah, I saw your message in the chat. So I work in instructional design as well. I'm in the Chicago area, so I'm going to reach out and connect on LinkedIn.
Perfect. And whether you're in the same area or not, connecting with each other is really a good thing. It builds your network. You've got something in common. We can support each other. And another way that we can support each other, okay, is not just through those connections, but by joining our private LinkedIn group. Now, private LinkedIn group means that that group is not visible to anyone on LinkedIn. You cannot search for Lunch and Learn with Linda and find it. What you write in there is not visible to anyone else on LinkedIn. It will not show up on your profile page. What I find useful in there is not only the fact that I'm going to be sharing at the end of today's session, I'll share the link to the video, I'll share the chat, okay? But also the fact that we can now introduce ourselves, you can make additional connections, you can ask questions, you can share job ideas. It's a way of really building on these networking relationships that we're doing in this virtual world. So ideas, articles, things that are useful for other people, please share them, ask your questions, get some support in that group. The only way you can join that group is to have registered for Lunch and Learn. If we are first level connections, I can invite you, but otherwise I put the link to request access to the group. And when I've seen your name, I know you're part of this group, you're automatically admitted. Okay? Perfect. All right, let's go to the question section. So this section, as I mentioned, or session today, as I mentioned, is really all about you. I know that there are job search questions out there. Some of them don't fit into the standard, here's the topic that we're discussing for the day. So it's your opportunity to ask us anything. Bo, you've got a question or a success?
I do. No, I do have a question. So I'm ready when you are.
Go.
So if you live in Illinois, the state has something called WorkNet.
Yes.
And so working with WorkNet, which is this free service, I'm thankful to have it, and polishing my resume. And typically I've heard that Arial is the recommended font, 11 point is the recommended size. I'm thankful to WorkNet for what they have done to improve some of the content, but they came back to me with something with a point size smaller than 11 point and with a font different from Arial. It's kind of in the Helvetica family, so it's not too far off, but it doesn't do it for me, and I doubt it does it for you.
No. So WorkNet is what it's called here in Illinois, but every state has something similar. It's based out of their unemployment offices. You don't have to be getting unemployment compensation to make use of their services. What I love is the fact that they do provide those services for free. One of the concerns is, just as you mentioned, Bo, that some of the people who are participating as part of their staff are not necessarily current in what's out there. Okay. So if you've got a question, absolutely go to them. There are great resources. If you are unemployed and getting unemployment compensation, you know you have to register on those WorkNet systems, those unemployment related systems in terms of jobs. Even if you're not getting unemployment comp, still register on those systems. It's another way on those employment-based systems. It's another way of getting your information out there. And we know that every employer who's posting jobs on those unemployment-based systems is anxious and ready to hire. We also know that people who are posting jobs on those systems don't care if you have been unemployed. So the fact that you might have a job gap is not going to bother them. So it's another way of getting yourself out there. So back to the idea of the fonts. Standard font for a resume is either Calibri or Arial. You want something that is on everybody's computer, on their system, and that is very easy to read. Remember, we're reading these for the most part online. And Arial and Calibri have been found to be the most readable fonts. You do want something that is no less than a 10 in terms of a font size. My preference is an 11 for the text. You can go up to 12 or 14 for your headings. Maybe your contact information is a little larger, but that's basically what it is. You also want to make sure that Your margins are not too close to the edges, no less than 0.8 all the way around. Readable on screen, on phone. Okay, and if I choose to print it, make sure that it's there. Also, when that information gets uploaded into that applicant tracking database, it will read all the information on the margins. If it's too close to the margin, some of those letters are going to be cut off. And that's not what you want.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Other questions? Al,
So maybe it's a loaded question, but
okay.
looking when let's say you decide to work with a job coach like Linda, you are, and Sue, you are. So what are the things that you think we should look for in someone who's offering this? Because there's a lot of people out there, a lot of people who have, I mean, you've talked about your background and your experience, and there's some people out there who sometimes I look at them and they're promoting themselves, and if I'm looking at their profile, I'm like, well, I don't see really where you're an expert at anything particular, but they're saying, hey, use me because I can do this for you and that for you. And just in my own experience, someone paid for someone to help me. And so it wasn't a choice I made. I'm not really thrilled with who I'm working with, but so I'm just curious, as far as what you both of you do when you work with someone. So,
Okay. Sue, would you like to take that one?
Sure. I was just going to add on to, I know Linda has a lot of thoughts on this too. First of all, and I hope this is becoming more common, anybody that you engage, not necessarily through an employer, if you're let go and they have an outplacement service, you can't ask for this. But if you engage someone who wants you to pay, make sure before you pay them that you get samples of what they say has been effective. And I know we all like testimonials, but a testimonial is only the best person. I want to see, and even if I have to say to people, please keep this confidential, something that says, I know what my job is. I know how I've kept current, number one. Number two, I would ask them specifically their experience, say to them, I've been job searching for a long time. I'm in groups. I meet people all the time. Tell me the average number of professionals you work with each month, if you could. I'm trying to make sure that people I engage keep up with, are up on the ATS, because I have recently come across people that are giving advice that should know better than to say some of I know Linda's shaking her head too, probably the same one that I saw.
Yeah.
And you should view this kind of like we say about interviews, but in this case, if you're paying for it or if you're not, because I give my course away free, but you should feel free to act on your own behalf and ask me. If I won't provide the information, I will tell you why I can't. But in actual fact, I have approval from mentees to share actual examples that worked for them. The third one is to be clear with them what you need from them. So I know it's really hard when you're job searching. If you're new to job searching because you just got laid off, I'm sorry for the two examples we've had already today. But remember that there's information out there and you know what you're going to need. You're going to need a resume that's relevant for the ATS, but can be scanned. Linda just gave you the margins on that. So those are my three general pieces of advice that I want you to feel you can take control of the conversation. Thanks, Linda.
Absolutely. Joe. Another question or continuing on this one?
No, yeah, sorry, Linda. I just had a question regarding this part-time rut that I'm in.
Okay.
Just a quick recap is
Joe, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you just for a moment. Let me finish the response to the question that was asked first, and then I'll get back to you.
okay.
Okay, so a couple of the things to add to what Sue said. A reputable coach is going to give you an opportunity to have a quick conversation first before asking you to pay for anything. Okay, so for example, anybody who wants to have a quick conversation with me, I put a link, you can just go right to my calendar and make that appointment. You want to find out about that person's style, what they're offering, and more importantly, you want that conversation to be more about you. What is it that's important to you? Where are you in your job search? If a coach says, I have a ready-made program. Everybody I work with, we're going to do A, B, C, and D, and it's going to go in this order, and I'm going to give everybody the same advice. That doesn't work. We don't all need exactly the same things. We don't all learn and work in exactly the same way. So you want somebody who not only has the experience in the field, and to me, that's a big one. If somebody just says they're a coach, but has never done the work, that raises a red flag for me. I want somebody who's got that experience, who's constantly learning, who's aware and networking with people in the field, and can give you the experience based on what works in that field, not just because they're selling you a program. You want to make sure in that little chat conversation as well that their style works for you, because your style and their style may not match. And there are a lot of great coaches out there, but some of them you may choose not to work with just based on the factor of the style. And that's an important thing. Remember, this is you and your job search. So one of the things that I find is important is developing that relationship between the coach and the individual so that we get to know each other, and some of the conversations may not just be job search. It may be what's going on in the other parts of your life, because that affects other things that are going on. So that coaching relationship can evolve beyond just how do I get my resume in front of somebody else. I do want to be able to see success. Some job search candidates are not willing to share some of that, and I understand that and support that. So do read their testimonials. Most good coaches are willing to give you the networking contact information so that if you want to talk to somebody about what they've done and how they worked with me, instead of just, or any coach, instead of just reading what they wrote, you can absolutely do that. So you want somebody who's willing to engage in those kinds of practices as well. And my last one is really a run, don't walk. If any coach out there says, I guarantee that all my clients will get, I guarantee you're going to get a job in 30 days, or the next job that you get is going to be at a 20% increase, or anything else, run away. No coach, no person can guarantee you a job. Coaching is a process. It's providing you support, information, guidance. It's going to give you the tools that you need to help move you along and then support you along the way, but it cannot guarantee you a job. And any coach who says that, or says, I can guarantee that you're going to increase your LinkedIn engagement or following by X% in X number of days, can't be done. Don't count on it. Okay. It really doesn't work. Okay. Sorry for my soapbox, because I agree. I see an awful lot of coaches out there who just say, raise their hand and say, gee, this looks like fun. I could do this.
Yeah,
and really don't have the back.
Thank you, Linda, because I've unfortunately fallen into working with someone kind of like that. And I don't know how you both of you charge, but this was like flat fee, 30 days. Here's what and
Sorry.
talking about like getting you a 6-figure salary. And I was like, but I went with it only because someone else, a family member, paid for it. And I was like, all right, I'll work for it, but I was not impressed. And so anyway, that was just where I'm coming from.
And I understand that, and I appreciate the comment and the question. I think it's a really good one. Okay, and if anybody has questions about what you really should be looking for in a coach, whether it's me or Sue or someone else, please reach out. I'm happy to talk to you about that, okay? We both want to make sure that you succeed, that you get the tools that you need, the support that you need. And if it's not us, we want to make sure that you find the right person. And I do prefer people to other people if it's not the right fit. So, absolutely. Okay. Joe, sorry about the long-winded response, but now let's get back to your question.
Yeah, sorry about that. Just a quick recap. When the pandemic benefits ended in the fall 2021, income ended. I took a part-time job teaching computer classes for a year. It was part-time. That's all that was available. Then I did when I bought a car, I started doing, food delivery part-time. I try to do freelance IT consulting part-time, just to try to get extra money. That pretty much ended in 2023 because classes died off. That was part-time. So that ended at like around March. So when that ended, I got a part-time job working with Voca. That was 3 months last year. I was laid off from that by May. Then I took a 6-month contract, Robert Half. I was laid off. That was part-time. I've been in a part-time rut since pandemic benefits ended. Everything's been part-time. Any job that I'm applying for in the last 2 months, it's full-time, is thinking that I'm not committed to full-time because all I've been doing is part-time. The case is I took the part-time because I needed survival work. It's not that I wasn't looking, that's all that was offered to me. What's a good response to that?
So there are several. Sue, did you have a response that you wanted to give? And then I'll chime in.
I don't mean to always go first, Linda.
I know.
Yeah, thank you. Joe, I'm actually working with someone right now. He's just finishing the 4-step course I have, and he has had since 2018 only part-time jobs, and some of them have been interesting, but basically he's a senior program manager, but everybody wants to hire him because he was helping events and an executive assistant to staff. So we created a roadmap of his positions titled under all the ways he's used his program management and defined for those jobs, not what he did, but where it had a transferable skill. If you contact me through LinkedIn, I'll be glad to ask him, because I'll see him tomorrow, ask him if I have approval to share his examples. I usually get them from people when they finish the course. But you want to tell a story of how you've been keeping current in whatever you're applying for. But also you want to get that visual signal off there that it's temp agency. And I feel bad for you because as I said, I just heard for the last 4 weeks, the same person's tells me every time I keep trying, and how do I do it? So let's figure out how we can visually take control of the conversation by getting your job title, preferred job title focus in there, and then weave a story of all those things underneath it rather than listing each one in reverse chron order. That's my suggestion, Linda.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to give a slightly different viewpoint, is that as a recruiter, I still want to see things in reverse chronological order. However, I want to see you highlight up top what those skills are. I want to see you highlight up top outside of that chronology what you've been able to accomplish that matches the new job. When you're doing that, it doesn't matter to me whether it came from a contract role, a part-time position, or a full-time position, whether it was last year or 10 years ago. You're demonstrating what you can do that relates to my job. The other thing is that on your resume, you do not have to say that it was full-time or part-time.
I know.
Okay, you really don't have to. And when you're putting a contract job or a part-time position on your resume, I want you to put the name of the employer as the person or the company for whom you are actually doing the work, not
can't.
the firm that's doing the paycheck.
I can't. Robert Half requires Robert Half for the title. Clients have to be in the description. I got to go by what they say.
No, there's a way around it. So you can say at company X through Robert Half.
All right. I was just playing by the rules. That's
And I understand that. And on LinkedIn, it may be a little different, but even so, the fact that it's through Robert Half is one thing, but Robert Half is not the one who's directing the work. The work is actually being directed by the company to whom you are doing the work for. So if you're contracting at Grainger through Robert Half, the work you're doing is through Grainger. So you're going to say IT service desk at Grainger through Robert Half. That, okay. If they need it. But I would double check their requirement. I don't know that they can legally require you to list them as the employer of record. I may be wrong. I haven't seen their agreement. If you want to shoot it to me, let me take a look.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. But especially on LinkedIn or on your resume, you don't have to say that it's full or part-time. You can just list what it is. And I highly recommend the company itself, not the contracting agent, be your employer.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
you're welcome. Lewis.
If I can unmute myself.
There you
So I
go.
feel for Joe. I'm kind of going the opposite way, but similar to Joe. I just have to get a part-time job to bridge the gap. I have no choice, not that I don't want to, but it's time. The unfortunate thing is a lot of employers are not hiring now. The season is over. They're not hiring to April, May, whatever. But I'm getting the feeling that some of them are thinking that they don't want to hire me because I'm looking for more full-time based on my resume, whatever. I mean, any recommendations? Because they've got to know there are people that just would like to have part-time so we could, fill our gaps, but also continue to pursue full-time. And I know there's a battle with employers about that. They don't want to hire somebody, train them, and then they quit because they get something else. But taking a full-time retail job where you have less time to network, but also apply for jobs and interview is a tough thing too. So any ideas from the job coaches on how we handle something like that and how we attack it at an employer that maybe we're getting that feeling that that's why they're not hiring us?
So you know that I highly recommend customizing a resume every time you send it out. When you're talking about some of these part-time jobs, especially if it's what I call a survival job, it's not necessarily in your field. It's just something to pay the bills while you're continuing to look. It's not where you want to end up. Then you may want to put together a resume light for that particular position. The idea is to make sure that you're targeting that role without saying, I've been a manager and this job is the worker bee. We know that you have, it's there, but you're not going to emphasize those skills that are over and above what this job is looking for. The other thing is that when you're actually doing you're presenting yourself, whether it's in your cover letter, then I want you to talk about the fact that at this point in your career, this is what makes sense for you. You want to learn something new. You want to be doing this. This is part of your journey. Or you can even say, and I've had employers who've done this and candidates who've done this successfully say, I need to take, how do I say this? I've been actively pursuing a part-time role like this because I know I can give back, I can do the work, but in addition, those part-time hours, and it's okay to say this, those part-time hours allow me to continue to develop my skills while I'm working for you. So make the goal to be more productive for them in that part-time role. Almost everybody, you're right, both Joe and Lewis knows that if you're taking that part-time job right now or that contract role, you want that full-time role. And you're working toward it. The only time that an employer, I shouldn't say the only time, but for the most part, an employer is going to be a little more hesitant about moving you into those roles if that part-time role requires a lot of training on their part. They don't want to invest a lot of time and energy in you if they think you're going to be leaving right away. So that idea, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's great. I didn't know if Sue was going to chime in. I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry. But to the point of the retail, let's just use Target. I just throw that out there. We all have targets. They're not hiring, say, till spring, but even if they're hiring, like, I'll use what you said. But for me, the goal is if they offer me full time, I'm not going to say no. But I'm not going in there wanting it full time. I prefer the part time, whatever hours that means to them, whatever schedule. I'm not saying, I can only work Monday through Friday or only the weekends. I've never said that on an app, but I just wanted the perspective of how do you attack it, knowing you've got to go in there, you've got to get that part-time job to bridge the gap, pay some bills because you're running out of time, money, whatever it is. So I appreciate that because it's just really hard trying to, if you do get to the employer, basically, do they think that Well, how are they thinking? Like, because they know that some of them know you're probably looking for something else outside of that per se.
Right. And so it's okay to acknowledge that actually, Lewis, to say,
Okay.
I'm looking specifically for a part-time job. I'm very flexible on the hours. I'm not looking for full-time. I
Okay.
love actually your target analogy. Some people are hesitant about doing things like that, putting their face out in public in some of those roles because they're unemployed and they don't want their friends and neighbors to know. Friend of mine actually took a job at a local Target over his wife's objections. She was embarrassed, he was not. He was at the cash register, okay, checking people out. He's almost a CFO, okay, depending upon the size of the company. But high level finance person had lost his job. And here he was at the cashier desk. Somebody came through his line, surprised to see him, struck up a conversation. Wait, I didn't know you were here. What are you doing? Well, was laid off. And I'm out doing this and it's kind of fun and I'm enjoying it, but it gives me an opportunity to continue to look to pursue my next role. The conversation continued as my friend was scanning items. Gee, do you have any experience in this? Yeah. Might you be interested in? That conversation at the cash register led to a full-time job at a level that was at or above where he was before and at a higher salary level. Not something he'd pursued, but it was there. And Target was very good about saying, we understand you're only looking for part-time. That's okay. So I applaud you for doing something like that.
Yeah, no, and that analogy is perfect. That's what people say. Yeah, you hope to you meet somebody like that or talk to somebody. But thank you very much for giving the similar perspective, but a little bit more detailed in what if you're truly needing to bridge the gap, and that's you got to go find it versus Joe who's been doing it and trying to get full time. So
right. So the idea is when you're going in and you're applying for those, it's the resume light, but your cover letter and your conversations are all about, I am choosing to do this. And here's why. Okay. And it does work. Okay. And I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Is it Shubha?
Yeah, it's Shubha. Hi. So I was recently laid off. My last working day was December 31st. I wanted to know what the norm is about changing the date of employment on LinkedIn and on your resume. Do we have to mention a termination date or, from to date on LinkedIn, change our status, or do we just keep it as present? What's the norm? Because I've heard both, both ways.
And I understand. And you will continue to hear things both ways. So here's my take on it. And I'm doing it both as a coach and former recruiter hiring manager. My feeling is that you can go for about 3 months on LinkedIn without changing the date. After that, I start to get suspicious. If I'm looking at it and we're talking and you're putting in your application and your application says you left the company in December, and if I'm looking on LinkedIn or on your resume and you're still saying that you're there, right? I know why you're doing it. I understand why you're doing it, but you do need to be a little careful. And there are some companies now that I've heard that are actually going after their former employees. Okay. And have contacted LinkedIn and says this is now a fake profile.
Okay. Yeah, I get your point. So it's about 2 to 3 months is okay.
2 to 3 months is absolutely fine. The same as I often recommend that when you're taking a new job, you may wait for 2 to 3 months before you announce it on LinkedIn. Make sure, how do I say this, that it really sticks and that you're comfortable. Okay. Before.
Okay, thank you.
Before you do that. So absolutely. Okay. Now, but you do bring up another question. Once you said that you are no longer working there, we need to include something else afterwards because LinkedIn has changed the way of looking at things.
Mhm.
We want you to be found as a candidate. And in order to be, it's not me as the individual. Okay, it's the LinkedIn and how it pops you up. Is that if you do not have a current employer, LinkedIn may not pop you into that search pool.
Mhm.
Okay, so what you need to do is develop or put a new employer in there, and your new employer can be open to work and then the positions that you're looking for. There are a number of LinkedIn companies that are already listed, okay, as a LinkedIn company, even though it's not necessarily a real one,
Mm.
that already have a logo that say open to work in finance or open to work in IT. Don't worry about where the location is. Okay, double check to make sure it's not a real company when you're doing this. But if it's the open to work in those companies, then that still tells LinkedIn that you are currently employed from their perspective, the algorithm's perspective, even though they know you're not. But it also tells people when you're looking that these are the job titles you're looking for. So it's another reinforcement of that option.
Oh, that's a good insight. I was in a dilemma of what needs to be done because you are dependent on LinkedIn so much for your job search and to be found. And if you're not linked to a company, then I wasn't sure what my access would be. Thank you.
Okay, so in our private chat,
Mhm.
before the end of the week, I will include a couple of those companies that are out there that you can add to your profile, as well as some ways of trying to find some others.
Oh, thank you so much. This is
Certainly.
very insightful.
Okay, thank you. Raul,
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Raul Limas. I just got laid off yesterday, actually.
oh, sorry,
No, it's
but
good
way to
timing,
be proactive coming back. Yeah.
right? Um, so I'm in the area of business management administration, and I have a question regarding government jobs. Any thoughts on how to apply for a government job or the process for that?
So applying for a government job is actually federal, state, local.
Probably state or federal, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. So state, I would apply the same way that you would for any other job. They're listed, they're posted, they are available. Federal jobs is an entirely different kind of a process. When we're talking about applying for almost any other job, we're saying that your resume should be no more than 2 pages. And it should be limited to the last 10 to 15 years of experience in terms of what you're actually building out. You can list prior experience in terms of the company and the title if it's important to the new job, but we don't really go into great detail about that older experience. If you're
Okay.
applying to a federal position, they want everything you've ever done, and they want it in great detail. In fact, their process is so strong that several times a year, they offer workshops or these webinars on how to apply for a federal job.
Huh.
If you go to usajobs.net, I think that's what it's called, or .gov, I'm not sure which one. Okay. They will often list some of those workshops there, or just Google applying for federal jobs.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yep.
And yes, Susan, you're absolutely right. That Friends Federal resume, 15 pages, that's not unusual. They want everything you've ever done in great detail.
Wow. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. If I see one of those come up, I'll try and put it in the chats as well.
Okay.
Sherry,
Perfect.
you
Thanks.
have something to go along with this or another question? If it's another question, I'm going to go to Lisa first.
No, it's a comment.
Go ahead.
I just put the link in the chat for some Illinois jobs.
Perfect. Thank you. And I've worked with several people who have taken jobs either with state or county governments, as well as a couple who've moved into the federal arena. I will be the first to admit that if you are really serious about wanting a federal job, There are some people who are better than I am in terms of actually putting together those federal resumes and coaching for those positions, and I'm happy to point you in their direction. Lisa.
Hi, thank you. I'm sorry. So I just finished a third interview and my references are being checked today as we speak. That one of them was checked yesterday and one is today. So my question really comes around or circles around, it's higher ed. So something I think you can relate to.
Yes.
How is there any wiggle room? Salary is obviously not what I would desire, but it's getting your foot in the door. And I know I can't do much with that. Is there wiggle room with negotiating benefits or extended vacation time because I don't need their benefits?
I wish I could tell you yes. Most higher ed jobs are union based. Is yours?
I don't believe so.
May I ask what the school is?
I'll put it in the chat.
That's fine. Okay. And the only reason that I'm asking is that some have a little more wiggle room than others. For the most part, you may have more leeway depending upon the level of the position. I'm sorry, the university that you're applying to is not a public school.
Correct.
Which was really what I was looking for. So every university, whether it's public or private, will have a set salary range and a set defined set of benefits. Can I ask what level? Is this teaching? Is it support staff?
So it's administrative. So it's actually a coordinator position, but the coordinator, it's an ADA coordinator, but I'm actually supervising an associate director. So it's kind of strange. Yes. So it's strange in the makeup of the position. It's an ADA coordinator for all student-based services.
Okay.
There is not an ADA coordinator for the university. So, but I'm supervising an associate director, student workers, and 3 or 4 other technically coordinators. So I think the title of the position is misnamed, but that's not a concern to me at this point. I figure I have to get my foot in the door before I ask for it to be retitled. My bigger concern is trying to figure out if I can, so I don't need any of their benefits because my spouse carries them for us. So I'm trying to figure out after having, 20 years in the business, if I can negotiate an extra week of vacation.
So I would absolutely try and do that. And I would do it on the basis of not needing their benefits as well as the level of the position. The extra week, if it is a non-union position, especially at a private university, you are more likely to be able to do that than you are at a public one. So I would definitely go in and try and negotiate for that extra week of vacation.
Right. I just figured that was, that would at least, make me a little bit more excited about the salary differential.
Okay. You can also negotiate or try to negotiate a little bit on the salary. Universities don't have a whole lot of wiggle room.
Right. There's bands. I know salary bands.
Well, most organizations hopefully now have those salary bands as well. But if it is a non-union position, you have more wiggle room within that band coming in than you would within a union organization. So the way have they already given you a salary? I'm assuming that they have.
They just before I interviewed, they gave me the salary range. So I won't accept anything than the top of the band. And this has been going on for 5 weeks. So I'm assuming that they're pretty interested. They actually called me in for a third interview unexpectedly. Thank you. So I just it's a great group of people. I like what I'm doing. There is some flexibility. It's 4 days in the office, 1 day at home, which is nice. But I just, I'd like to get some other perk into it or benefit. Because like I said, I'm not going to take any of their benefits.
So I would tell them that, that you don't need or want their medical benefits, the rest of those benefits. And in lieu of that, would you be willing to do this? For any of the things, even in terms of salary, the phrase always is, okay, if you're asked for the information up front, what are you looking for? If they haven't given you what the range is, give them this based on what I know now. that phrase, based on what I know now, signals that you know that there may not be in the right range and you are open to negotiating and hoping to be able to negotiate later. No guarantee it's going to work. But then when the offer is made, now that I know more about the position and you know more about me, I was really looking for more in line with this.
Right, because I'm coming in and having to revamp the entire process. They're so out of compliance and just they're so like I'm gonna have to redo the entire department.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is fine. But
nice to be able to make it in your image.
Right. And there's some great young talent in the group, which is fantastic. They're excited and eager and willing to learn. It's strange to me that a coordinator is supervising an associate director.
I understand. Okay, so I think I actually have DM me on LinkedIn afterwards.
Okay.
Okay, or contact me. I think that's where she is, has taken a role there within the last year or so at that university and may have tried to do the same thing.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm happy to put you in touch.
That'd be fantastic.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for all your help, by the way.
Of course. Chad.
Linda, I was talking to a friend of mine who recently got a job, and one of the things that he mentioned that worked for him, and just wondering whether you would counsel this as being a wise approach or not, is when he saw the job posting on LinkedIn, he saw who the hiring manager was and directly messaged that person about the job. Is that a good idea, or does that seem a little obtrusive by the hiring team?
Did that person get a response?
He got the job.
Good. Okay, so I'm not at all adverse to you reaching out to the hiring manager or the recruiter if you can figure out who they are. In fact, many jobs that are posted on LinkedIn are now giving you that resource name. I would not apply directly to that person. What I recommend is that you you apply through the normal channels. You actually apply on the company's website, not through LinkedIn, not through Indeed or any other source. It gets to the hiring manager, to the HR people faster than if you do it directly through LinkedIn. Don't ask me why that happens, but it does. So apply direct, find the job wherever you find it, but apply directly on the company's website. If you know the name of the person who's hiring, or you know some people that are there, absolutely build those connections. And the message to that person should be, I've seen all the stuff you've been posting, if you have, whatever, doing great stuff. I just wanted to know how excited I am to be able to bring X, Y, and Z to this kind of a role. I've just applied. Would you please take a look? Not hire me. Not necessarily talk to me. That then becomes that intrusive, but you're giving them that heads up. And by giving them that connection request too, whether they use it or not, it's also that prompt for them to go take a look at your profile as part of that process. Which is another reason that profiles need to be up to date.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
Absolutely. Raul, is your hand up for a new question or did you forget to take it down?
Oops, sorry, down.
No problem. Other questions that we can answer for you today? So I've put my contact information in the chat. I also put in a link so that you can make a quick 20-minute chat, and I've seen at least one person do that so far while we've been on the call, which is great. Remember to join our private group, and I'm going to put in that private group that information about setting up that new profile or that new company as part of what you're doing. Okay. And And that way you have a current employer. Yes, Bo?
So Linda, I've got a friend who's been in job search for more than a year, and he's going to be a tremendous asset to the firm that hires him. What kind of extra special things might someone like that do that perhaps they haven't tried?
So it depends on what kind of job he's looking for. One of the statistics that you all should know, by the way, is that in spite of what you're seeing in some of the press, what employers are telling us is that they recognize that everybody has job gaps, okay? Almost everybody whose profile you're going to look at is going to have some sort of a gap, whether it's in 1 month or several years. Gaps happen. Employers are more willing to not only accept that, but to understand that they happen and work around it. If somebody has been in job search for a period of time, what I want to do is I want to see in addition what they have been doing during that time frame. Now, it could be that they were caring for a family member. Could be that they were taking a class. And if they haven't been taking a class during that time frame, take a class. Okay? Doesn't have to be one you pay for. It can be a free class through LinkedIn, something to keep your skills up to date. And then in that company that you're saying is your employer during this time frame, right? You're open to work. You're going to be listing some of the things that you did. Refresher course in, new skills in, volunteer work. By the way, volunteer work is great. It not only gives you something to do, it helps you do good and feel good at the same time, but it builds additional connections, keeps you busy and productive, and it helps you generate some new skills that you can add to not only your profile, but to your job. So we can find a way of talking about all of them. Yes, Lori. Go ahead, Lori.
The volunteer skills, what if I've been like volunteering on and off for years? They haven't been on my LinkedIn. Can I put them in now at the top?
If you're not employed now, absolutely. I would say volunteer work.
Okay, because
And you can use that as, yeah.
like this
absolutely.
job gap thing. I mean, I have been volunteering for on and off for years. I just never put them on LinkedIn. And I'm like, well, now I need something at the top because I'm out of my 3-month bandwidth.
Absolutely. Now, when you're
thank
saying
you.
volunteer work, I wouldn't include in there those things that you do once a year. Okay.
Oh yeah, no. The things that I do ongoing, like
Exactly.
weekly, monthly. Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. So those are really important things to add. And you will learn new things by doing it. And we can talk about the skills that you've added there and the accomplishments that you may have had. Okay. So the volunteer work, absolutely. Okay. I'm going to stop the recording and, okay.